Ray Stevenson built a legacy the hard way, role by role, genre by genre, leaving behind a body of work that only grows in stature. Gilbert Gottfried, a voice so singular it became its own institution. Matthew Perry made the world laugh for a decade straight, and the world has not stopped missing him since. Donald Sutherland spent 60 years making every film he touched more interesting, a career defined by intelligence, range, and an absolute refusal to be ordinary. Kobe Bryant turned obsession into a philosophy, and that philosophy outlived the game. Burt Bacharach wrote the soundtrack to an era and somehow made it feel personal every single time. There is a scene in Raging Bull, one most film students can recite from memory, where Jake LaMotta stands in a prison cell and beats his fists and head against the concrete wall, howling into the stone, because there is nothing else left to destroy. Robert De Niro did not perform that scene, he inhabited it. The distinction is not semantic. It is the entire argument for why, more than 5 decades into a career, his name still functions as a standard against which actors measure themselves. Raging Bull arrived in 1980 and immediately complicated what American cinema thought it knew about screen performance. De Niro had already won an Academy Award for The Godfather Part II in 1974, playing the young Vito Corleone in a role that required him to learn Sicilian dialect, study the mannerisms of Marlon Brando without mimicking them, and build a characterization from near silence. He was 29. He won the Oscar. And rather than consolidate that position into safe stardom, he moved directly toward difficulty. The preparation for Raging Bull is documented obsessively because it genuinely was obsessive. De Niro trained with LaMotta himself, sparring thousands of rounds over a period of more than a year, to the point where LaMotta told reporters the actor could have fought professionally. Then, because the film's timeline required LaMotta's later physical deterioration, De Niro gained approximately 60 pounds in deliberate, medically supervised increments over several months. He traveled to Italy. He worked with a dialect coach. He visited LaMotta's actual haunts in the Bronx. Director Martin Scorsese has said in multiple interviews that De Niro essentially became the project's research engine, arriving on set already knowing things the crew had not yet discovered. The film won De Niro his second Academy Award. But its longer consequence was methodological. A generation of actors, Jared Leto, Christian Bale, Natalie Portman in Black Swan, Joaquin Phoenix across multiple films, have cited extreme physical transformation as central to their process in ways that trace a direct line back to what De Niro demonstrated was possible and credible and rewarded. The question of whether that approach is healthy or sustainable is genuinely debated in the industry. The fact that it became industry vocabulary is not. Before Raging Bull, before The Godfather Part II, there was Mean Streets. It is 1973. De Niro is playing Johnny Boy, a volatile, self-destructive small-time hood in Scorsese's semi-autobiographical portrait of Little Italy. And the performance is kinetic in a way that still startles on a first viewing. Johnny Boy does not explain himself. He erupts. He lies with a grin. He dances in a bar to Jumping Jack Flash with an ease that feels genuinely unscripted. Scorsese and De Niro were both young and broke and working from instinct, and what they built together in that film became the foundation of one of the defining creative partnerships in American film history. Scorsese and De Niro collaborated on 9 films. Mean Streets, The Godfather Part 2, was not a Scorsese film, but arrived in the same period. Then Taxi Driver, New York, New York, Raging Bull, The King of Comedy, Goodfellas, Cape Fear, Casino, and The Irishman. That body of work constitutes a sustained argument about American masculinity, violence, ambition, and moral failure that has no real equivalent in cinema. Each film pushed both men. In Taxi Driver, De Niro's Travis Bickle, the insomniac veteran, building toward a violent act of what he considers moral clarity, generated one of the most quoted monologues in screen history. "You talking to me?" was improvised. It is now embedded in the global cultural lexicon in a way that advertising agencies, politicians, and schoolchildren reach for instinctively. Taxi Driver is also the film that introduced the world to a 12-year-old Jodie Foster. Foster has spoken in interviews about how De Niro's professionalism and seriousness on set shaped her early understanding of what film acting required. She went on to win 2 Academy Awards. Connections like that one, an actor's conduct and craft radiating outward into the careers of collaborators, are part of the legacy that does not appear on a filmography. In the 1,980 seconds, De Niro made choices that confirmed he was not interested in repeating himself. The King of Comedy, also with Scorsese, cast him as Rupert Pupkin, a failed comedian with delusional levels of self-belief who kidnaps a talk show host. The film was released in 1983, received politely, and then, essentially, predicted the next 30 years of celebrity culture, fan obsession, and the psychology of public ambition, with an accuracy that critics acknowledge more readily now than they did then. Once Upon a Time in America, in 1984, required De Niro to play a Jewish gangster across 5 decades, aging with a physical and emotional restraint that is the opposite of the explosive energy he had become famous for. Midnight Run, in 1988, demonstrated that his comic timing was genuine, not accidental. Charles Grodin, his co-star, said in subsequent interviews that De Niro was funnier on set than the film even captured. Brazil, he appeared briefly, memorably, bizarrely, as a heating engineer. Cape Fear, This Boy's Life, Heat. In Michael Mann's Heat, in 1995, De Niro and Al Pacino shared a screen in a single scene for the first time, despite both having appeared in The Godfather Part 2. The coffee shop scene between their 2 characters, the professional thief and the detective who mirrors him, runs approximately 7 minutes and is conducted almost entirely in close conversation. It became one of the most studied scenes in modern American cinema for how 2 actors of equivalent technical weight negotiate screen space and attention without diminishing each other. Pacino has spoken about how the scene changed his thinking about stillness. Mann has noted that neither actor tried to win the scene. That mutual restraint from 2 performers who each had every credential to dominate produced something that neither would have produced alone. Jackie Brown, Copland, Wag the Dog, analyze this. The late 1990s saw De Niro deliberately enter a phase where self-parody and genre work coexisted with serious dramatic choices. Analyze This, in which he played a mob boss in Therapy, was a commercial hit, partly because the audience understood the joke required a real gangster to land correctly. The casting was the punchline and the performance simultaneously. It worked because De Niro understood what he represented publicly and was willing to engage with it directly without condescension. He became a producer. In 1989, De Niro co-founded Tribeca Productions, which developed film projects with a particular focus on New York stories. After the September 11th attacks in 2001, he co-founded the Tribeca Film Festival with Jane Rosenthal and Craig Hatkoff, with an explicit goal of driving economic and cultural recovery to Lower Manhattan. The festival began in 2002, attracted major industry attention immediately, and has since become one of the significant film festivals in the United States, screening thousands of films and generating hundreds of millions of dollars in economic activity for New York City. That is not an anecdote about civic goodwill. That is institution building. De Niro helped create a cultural infrastructure that continues to function independently of his acting career. Goodfellas, which Scorsese released in 1990, is now routinely cited in critics' polls among the 10 greatest American films ever made. De Niro's Jimmy Conway is not the film's narrator or its moral center. Ray Liotta's Henry Hill holds both those roles, but Conway is the film's gravitational danger. The scene in which he watches Spider shoot pool after shooting him in the foot, the way Conway's silence operates as threat, the reading De Niro brings to a character who functions primarily as an ambient source of possible death. It is a masterclass in how to be essential to a film without requiring its center. Silver Linings Playbook, in 2012, showed something different. Playing the father of Bradley Cooper's character, a man navigating his own emotional limitations through ritual and sports betting, De Niro received his 8th Academy Award nomination. He was 68. The film was a romantic comedy drama directed by David O. Russell, and De Niro met its tonal register completely: warm, funny, flawed, specific. Jennifer Lawrence won the Oscar that year. Bradley Cooper was nominated. De Niro's performance was the scaffolding that made both of theirs possible. He appeared in Joy in 2015, also with Russell and Lawrence. He appeared in The Irishman in 2019, the Scorsese film in which de-aging technology was used to portray him and his co-stars, Joe Pesci, Al Pacino, at younger ages across a narrative spanning decades. The Irishman is 3.5 hours long, examines the psychology of loyalty and erasure in organized crime, and received 10 Academy Award nominations. De Niro's Frank Sheeran is a man who reveals almost nothing about his inner life, even as the film slowly, exhaustingly builds the case that his inner life has cost him everything. It is arguably De Niro's most interior performance since The King of Comedy. Outside the work, De Niro has been publicly and vocally political in a period when many performers of his generation opted for silence. His appearances at public events, his statements in award season speeches, and his willingness to use his platform on matters of civic concern have generated significant media attention and occasional controversy. He has not treated celebrity as requiring neutrality. That choice has costs and carries risk, and he has accepted both. He has also been publicly candid about the business realities of his later career. In a 2023 interview, he acknowledged that financial considerations, including personal expenses related to family, influenced his choice to take certain commercial roles. That candor was notable. It did not diminish the serious work. It contextualized the full picture of what sustaining a career at the highest level actually involves across multiple decades. In 2023, De Niro received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, awarded by President Biden. He became a grandfather again. He was in production. He had public disputes. He continued working. The instinct of legacy writing is to close the argument, to identify the moment that sealed the meaning of a career and present everything after it as epilogue. That instinct is wrong about Robert De Niro. The Irishman does not feel like an epilogue. Killers of the Flower Moon, in which he appeared in 2023 in a supporting role as William Hale, the calculating patriarch whose manipulation drives the film's central horror, is not the work of a performer coasting. Playing Hale required a very specific quality, the banality of charismatic evil, the small-town warmth that functions as cover for something monstrous. De Niro found it. He turned 80 in 2023. He is, by any reasonable measure, one of the 2 or 3 actors in the history of American cinema whose body of work changed the language of what the art form can do. The techniques he made visible, physical transformation as emotional access, improvisational specificity, the refusal to explain character motivation from the outside, are now embedded in acting pedagogy, casting conversations, and the ambitions of performers who were born after Raging Bull was released. But the story is not closed. He is still choosing roles. He is still capable of surprise. The Tribeca Film Festival continues to shape which films find audiences. The performances accumulate. The argument continues to be made in real time by a man who has not stopped making it. What Robert De Niro represents is not a completed monument. It is an ongoing demonstration that the most serious engagement with craft, sustained over 50-plus years across genres, across the natural attrition of a career, through commercial compromise and artistic breakthrough in alternating seasons, produces something that cannot be faked, cannot be rushed, and does not quietly retire. The ledger is long. It is not finished.